right, guys. Pastor John here for part 2 of my testimony. Looking forward to this. I'm feeling extra peppy today. So far I've been learning quite a bit about YouTube, so I appreciate just the comments, and I'm going to edit this a little bit more, add a little flair to it. Flair to the sloth man.
Come on, guys, we need more energy, okay?
So I talked last time about kind of how I was this lean, mean fighting machine, and I, was on the outside really fit and healthy, but on the inside there was this kind of decaying rottenness that was building. And a little bit more background, my upbringing, I had mentioned that my parents were Christian. We went to church, and really my parents were great examples of Christians. They were evangelicals like most Christians were in the Midwest in the 90s and 2000s. And we went to church, prayed. It wasn't super religious. I still felt like I was raised pretty much like everybody else at public school, but it definitely was there. The problem arose when I got into science, because back then there wasn't many Christian voices that were talking about how science and Christianity could coexist.
You are an idiot, and science is stupid!
And there was the rise of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the new atheists like Dawkins and Hitchens and Harris. So those guys really impacted me and impacted a lot of men growing up. I graduated in 2008, and I remember constantly having to defend my faith and argue with people about how, Christianity was stupid, and I think it wore me down. By the time I went to college, I went to a Christian college, but it wasn't really that helpful in my Christianity. I feel like that was where I really started to lose my faith. And I was into science. As I already said, I got my degree in biology, and I would go home from college and argue with my parents about evolution and, how they're teaching one thing at school, and then I come home and, I'm being told something completely different. So I started to have this crisis of faith. And I went to the University of Michigan after I graduated with my degree in biology. And it was probably there that I really got secular. Ann Arbor is a very secular town.
Well, we all love the Christmas hymns. But it might be jolly to include a secular song.
Great place, great college, but you're definitely getting thrown into the wolves there. And it was there that I really kind of had my faith go down. My whatever prayer life I had in college was pretty much gone, and in my 20s, by the time I graduated from college, my faith was pretty much non-existent. I would call myself an agnostic in my 20s, and this was in the 2010s. So the atheist movement was still pretty strong, and I took more of a utilitarian approach to faith. Like, I believe that Jesus had existed, but I didn't believe that he was, the Son of God. I kind of saw him like he was Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. He was really smart and wise, and he changed the world, but there was no supernatural things. And I pretty much looked at people who believed in the supernatural. I was fine with it, but it was more just like whatever fits your, desires. If it helps you, great, but I don't really need it.
I never figured you for a big moose lover, but whatever floats your boat.
So I was living in Flint, Michigan as a registered dietitian in my 20s, And I was just really decaying inside because I wasn't praying much, wasn't going to church, I wasn't around any Christians. And I think the devil was just really prowling. And I had like a crisis of identity because school was done, I was working, and I really got into intellectualism. I was reading 60 plus books a year, like big books, history, politics, economics, philosophy. I read Plato's complete works, Aristotle's complete works. I started writing a blog. It was called Dare to Be Wise. I wrote some books. So I wrote some small books on Plato and Aristotle. I wrote some fiction, which I'm actually still proud of one of those. And you can find those on Amazon if you search my name, John Oldham. So that was my identity. You know, like most of my days were consumed by reading politics online, going on Reddit, reading Reddit forums. So I was like your stereotypical Redditor. Oh Lord, no. Agnostic in his 20s, very political. Politics was a big deal to me. And that just kept growing, and my faith kept diminishing, and there was just a lot of moral decay. I felt like I was like a know-it-all. I would go home. I feel so sorry for my parents during this time in my life because I would come home and visit and just argue constantly, you know, like I would argue politics, everything, you know those types of people, like it's their identity, so they're like the know-it-all. That was me. And oh my goodness, thank you, Mom and Dad, for not throwing me out of the house during that time in my life. But I was just so abrasive, and I think the rottenness inside of me was really coming out, like the fruit of my soul. You know, Jesus talks a lot about like you'll know who's my followers by their fruit. Well, I was not following Christ. I was following the world, and my fruit was nasty.
Stank to high heaven.
I was not a great person to be around at that time. If anything, like how the inside affects the outside. I had the nastiest man bun when I was in my 20s, and you know, that's like an external expression of my rottenness. Sorry if you have a man bun, you probably should cut that off because they're nasty. That was kind of a fad back in the day, and really, whoever had a man bun, it was like, you're kind of hesitant to be around them. So, with all that being said, my faith was diminished. I was seeking answers from the world, and I was still having, you know, this porn addiction, lust out of control. I was married, and my wife and I were on this downward slope. My wife she wasn't an intellectual like me, but she was having her own struggles. And we were kind of growing apart, I could tell. And it wasn't all bad. You know, there were good moments, but I could definitely see that I was on a trajectory. So I think that's good for part 2. And part 3, I'll really get into more of that lust and porn addiction. So God bless, guys. Thanks again for watching these videos, and just leave me a comment. Tell me how I can improve on these videos, and maybe if your testimony is similar to mine, let me know. All right, love you guys. Bye.